Alrighty, guys, the summer movie season is in full swing, and we have another movie to talk about. It's all starting with Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning and Lilo and Stitch, and now let's talk about How to Train Your Dragon. This is going to be a non-spoiler review for How to Train Your Dragon, the 2025 live-action version of it. We will talk about a couple. I would say I wouldn't even call them spoilers, but just minor details that if you don't want to know, I'll let you know when we're going to talk about them at the very, very end. But this review really is going to be non-spoiler for the most part, because honestly, if you've seen the movie before, there's not a whole lot to spoil. I'm going to be vague for people who have not seen the original movie, though, just in case. But still, this is not a movie like Inception or a Christopher Nolan movie where the entire movie hinges on a twist and whatnot. I mean, it's How to Train Your Dragon, right? So it's kind of a known entity. But that being said, I'll kind of talk about the movie without giving away too many of the major details for those of you who have not seen the original. So this is the 2025 remake of the animated movie. I almost said live action movie. The animated movie that came out, I want to say 2009 or 2010. And I remember watching that original movie. It was one of the childhood memories, the childhood movies that I distinctly have a sense memory of, because there are very few movies that you just remember watching in theaters and having that experience when you're so young. The first Avengers was one of them. One of the original, or the sequel trilogy Star Wars films, The Force Awakens, was definitely one of them. And How to Train Your Dragon was certainly one of them. It was one of the animated movies I watched, which I watched a ton of animated movies. I loved the first Inside Out. I remember watching Up in theaters, but, How to Train Your Dragon was one of those that I so remember watching in theaters and just loving, and I'd seen it many, many times after that, the animated version, and I loved it. I actually, though, interestingly enough, maybe I was going through my, moody teenage years or whatnot, but I don't remember the second and third one that well. I think the third one came out during COVID, I want to say. So I remember watching that one and actually being a little disappointed by it, but I watched it once. It was during the pandemic. It was at home. I don't know. Maybe I'll rewatch it again at some point because, the first two were really good. The second one, I think I saw on a plane somewhere. So if that tells you anything, but the first one I loved. The first one, I just have such nostalgia for. And so when they announced a while ago they were going to be remaking the film in live action, not only remaking the film, the same director, and not only the same director, but Gerard Butler was coming back to play Stoic. And so as far as these live action remakes go, and we've talked about this many times on the YouTube channel, there are two. I'm of two minds of them, right? Not to go into the whole diatribe again. I'm of two minds of this. Number one, yeah, I think we should be a little bit cynical about these because, sure, all movies are meant to make money. Let's not pretend that they're not. Even the most artful movies are. I mean, I suppose maybe not all directors want their movies to make money, but they all shop them to studios so people can watch them, so that the studios can continue making these movies that get nominated for Oscars and whatnot. So it is about money in a certain sense, and in an interesting way, I've heard the arguments, why is everything a remake these days? And I get it. I mean, I would much rather have, a good balance of sequels and original movies and whatnot. The counterpoint to that is that they make, they being the studios and artists make lots of original movies that we just don't see. I'm trying to make a more conscious effort these days to see more of these original movies. I watched almost all the Oscar movies last year and it was great. I loved some, I hated some. So it is what it is, right? And I think, interestingly enough, I myself am actually the target demographic for a lot of these live-action remakes because I grew up watching Pixar films as animated films. And the occasional How to Train Your Dragon, for example, as a film. And, I did not really grow up watching those original animated Disney films that they've been remaking over and over again for the last few years. And so interestingly, a lot of these Disney live action remakes, I've been watching them and going, oh, wow, this is kind of fun. This is really interesting. Only to be told that, no, it's not as good as the original. It's not as good as the original 1990 original animated film. To which I respond, okay, I have no emotional attachment to the original. So I sympathize with your experience, but I can't relate. And I just think it's fun. The 2019 live action Aladdin remake, I had seen the movie 10, 15 years ago. Don't really remember much about it other than the iconic scenes. And I love the live action remake. I think Jungle Book was great. So, I've enjoyed a lot of them. I also have not enjoyed every single one of them, right? And case in point, the cynical side of me also says, well, look, I mean, you might be able to get away with, you're changing a lot of the movie and you're going to make it your own and take creative liberties and whatnot. But then you have your 2019's The Lion King, which was basically shot-for-shot remake, but with CGI lines. And How to Train Your Dragon, the trailers made it seem like that was the case. Like this movie, this anime or this live action movie was going to be basically shot for shot. And so it's really an interesting balance of me going in being like, I love the trailers. I love the original. The music in the trailer alone made me a little bit emotional. And yet it's a shot for shot remake. So how do I feel about it? So I went to go see the movie. I know it was a super long intro, but just to give context to where I'm at, I think context is super important to know where a reviewer is coming from before you hear their thoughts. And I loved this movie. And I thought about this, right? Because on the one hand, I think, there's the argument to be made of, oh, well, you're remaking one of the greatest animated movies of all time, which, by the way, I contend the original How to Train Your Dragon is one of the greatest animated movies of all time. I don't say that lightly, but I think it's true. And sure, you can say I have nostalgia for it, but after watching this live action remake, which was, I'll get to this in a second, very faithful to the original, it brought back all these memories of the original animated movie. I think the original is one of the greatest animated movies of all time. And the argument of, okay, so if you do a shot-for-shot remake of it, how much worse could it be? Fair, except I watched The Lion King, the 2019 version of The Lion King. I didn't love it. And it was a shot-for-shot remake of one of the greatest animated movies of all time. So I think execution is still an incredibly important part of it. This movie is very faithful, like I said. I haven't seen the original movie in a long time. It's been about 10 years, I think, since I've seen the original movie to be able to compare, shots and dialogue and whatnot. I mean, obviously, once scenes start to go, I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly like how it was in the animated movie. But the execution is a huge part of it. Casting is a huge part of it. They cast this movie so incredibly well. Obviously, Gerard Butler still there, right? He's carrying over, but he still does a great job as the live action version of Stoic. And Mason Thames as Hiccup, I was shocked. I thought for sure this guy was something like 25 or whatever and just playing younger. This kid's 17 as of the recording of this podcast. This kid's 17 and he did an amazing job as Hiccup. I mean, I don't know if he was intentionally trying to channel some of Jay Baruchel, who voiced the original Hiccup in the animated films. I don't know if he was trying to intentionally channel some of him, but I mean, he sounds very similar. The mannerisms are very just exactly what the animated character felt like. The tone, the emotions, the way that he presents himself, but it's still his own performance, and I thought that was great. Nico Parker as Astrid is amazing. Again, just channeling the spirit of that character. She really, the embodiment of the voice that America Ferrera brought to that character in the original animated film is very much present in Nico Parker's performance. I think the friends, Rough Nut and Tough Nut and Snot Nut and Fish Legs, they were probably maybe not as great as in the original, but that's because in the original they were kind of meant to be just goofy side characters, and in this movie in live action it doesn't work as well, but still they were fun. Gobber, great. All the characters great, and Toothless. My gosh, when I first saw the animated or the trailer for this movie, the question that I think everyone had before we actually saw it in the trailer was, how are they going to handle Toothless? Are they going to make him kind of turn it from Lion King animated to Lion King live action, so just make it look like a quote-unquote real dragon, whatever that means? Or were they going to stick faithfully to the original or something in between? Turns out, very much exactly, I would imagine, pretty much the exact same 3D model of the animated character from the animated film. And it's great. I mean, again, I have to acknowledge, right, that I have nostalgia for this. There's a scene in the middle, you guys know what I'm talking about if you remember the animated film, where, it's kind of that big first moment of the movie, right, towards the middle, and it brought me to tears. It was beautiful, and the music is fantastic, and the action is fantastic, but more than just the action, it's not just action for action's sake, and this is just like the animated film, I acknowledge that, but the characters have arcs, but by the time the movie ends, there is change. These characters have changed. They have grown. Every single character has gone through a journey in this movie, and it's amazing. And I get it, right? How hard is it to take a beautiful story from the animated film and just take it and bring it to live action? In that sense, sure, the task was quote-unquote easier than another film that had to write the script from scratch and whatnot. And I get that. This movie is not necessarily trying to be that. It's not trying to be the paragon of originality. I get that, and I understand that. But as a film, and as a reflection of the animated film as well, it did about as good of a job of recapturing the animated film to its core, so much so that I would feel comfortable. Again, I haven't seen the animated film in a while. I would feel comfortable today. If, let's just say I had access to the live action film in my house, on my TV. I would feel comfortable putting on either one of them, the animated or the live action film. They are, to me, in quality, interchangeable. And I say this because, it's easy to say, well, duh, it's the same movie. It's not always the case. I have to make this point because Lion King, for me, incredibly faithful adaptation to the original. And I would watch the animated film 10 times out of 10, maybe 9 times out of 10, compared to the live action one. Because it's hard. And I get that that's a different story with different problems of CGI lions and whatnot. I get that. But I think that, I'm not sitting here to defend live action remakes in general. I think that I think there needs to be a balance, and I definitely think that if Disney is just going to make live action remakes, then that's not the best thing, honestly, and it's preventing films from being original and then creating opportunities for sequels and live action films for us to complain about. That being said, that this isn't Disney, obviously, but just making a point. But I think that there is a space for these films to exist, right? And especially because it's the same director, and it seemed like he really put his heart and soul into it again, and just sought to bring these characters to life in a different way. This story, and I'm not even talking about the medium anymore, live action, animated, whatever. This story just transcends the medium, and it is one of the best stories I think I've seen put to screen in my lifetime. It really is. It has the right amount of groundedness, the right amount of humanity and darkness when it needs to be dark, right? The characters of Hiccup and Astrid, but Hiccup especially, he goes through a journey, and by the end, you guys know what this means if you've seen the animated film, but even if you don't, he's changed. He's literally a changed character at the end of the movie. His father has a really interesting and yeah, sure, it's been done before, but an interesting character arc that lands him in a place where you feel so good. And Astrid and Hiccup's relationship in the film is so well realized. And again, I mean, huge kudos to Mason Thames and Nico Parker. They really stood out because I thought they were much older actors, and this is a credit to them. I thought they were had been acting for a while, and they were young adults, and I mean they are young adults, but I mean literally Mason Thames is not even an adult yet, and that's a huge testament to his acting ability. So I get it, right? I get it if you want to be cynical, and I get it if you want to look at my top films of 2025 thus far. I'm not gonna hide anything. My top 2 favorite films of 2025 thus far are How to Train Your Dragon and Lilo and Stitch. It just is what it is. I can sit here and lie to you guys and try to look cool and try to be like, yeah, down with the live action remakes. And you guys know I have my problems with them. But what I experience is what I experience. I can't lie about how I experience these films. And those 2 films hit me in such a way, and it makes me think there is a space for them if they're done well. There's another live action remake actually that came out this year. I almost completely forgot about, Snow White, that I really didn't like. And so I think really at the end of the day, it just comes down to execution, right? They can make as many superhero movies as they want. If they're bad, they're bad. And if they're good, they're good. They can make as many live action remakes as they want. And if they're bad, they're bad. And if they're good, they're good. And so I think that's really, at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? It just make movies that are good, and I think that we'll be happy. So this was, again, I was so happy to come out of this movie as thrilled, emotionally moved, and riveted as I was, and it was a reminder to me of one of the greatest films I'd seen in my childhood brought back to the big screen. Guys, have you seen the live-action How to Train Your Dragon film? If you have, let me know what you thought about it. Let me know if you think it compares to the animated film, or if you still think the animated film is much better. Let me know in the comments down below.